Right. So, and I know it all started from somewhere and even the confidence. So if you had to talk to the audience about, your gutter to greatness and telling where it all started from. So and what was that gutter like? And walk us through, that your early ages and
Hmm.
not just what it was like, but also how did it feel? What did you go through? Because a lot of people could have faced some of the obstacles that you did. Because I remember I used to take you home uh,
Yeah.
and face some of the obstacles and would have an entirely different mindset. Or even think about, before you talk about that, even think about the fact that have you tasted like this huge piece of stardom, and you were such a large entity for this period of time with music, especially in your area and town. And then, even though it didn't work out exactly the way you wanted it to work out, you
Hmm.
still were able to still make a success out of it, where a lot of people would have gotten down on themselves
Absolutely.
and then said forget it,
Mhm.
and they would have just not believed in themselves. They would have succumbed to their gutter and their mindset, and just been able just felt like they weren't worth anything, even though what I feel you did was you were able to embrace the fact that you did all of these things that so many other people never was able to do, and you learned from it. And now you turn it into something else. So just where did it all start at, man? Talk to the people about what did your gutter look like?
Yeah, absolutely. Honestly,
Where did tell
to
people
be
where
a
you were raised at, where it
yeah,
started at, let them know.
yeah. So to be a thousand with you, coach. To be honest, people for some odd reason they thought that everything was just handed to me with a silver spoon, and that was the furthest thing away from reality for me. Um, is because if you know my story and where I come from, like gutter to greatness, it started for me at birth. So to give you guys a little bit intel into my story and my upbringing, um, I my mom was addicted to drugs after having me. I never lived a day with my mother ever in my life that I can remember. Maybe for short periods of time when she was trying to get herself clean from rehab, but I never lived a day with my mother. I'm the youngest of four children, and we were adopted by my grandmother, who raised us as her own. Not only did my grandmother only adopt us due to my mom's drug addiction, but she also had other kids that was adopted, that she adopted as well, due to my aunts being addicted to drugs as well. So my upbringing, it wasn't no glitz and glamour, and I didn't have a father figure in my life as well. My father figure from that standpoint, basically, um, if I, want to be 110% honest with you, it was one of those situations where, moms, I mean, my dad was, messing with my moms. My dad is, family is wealthy from around the way. He come to the city, mess with a few girls, end up getting my mom pregnant. Didn't want to take care of the responsibilities, especially, once she got addicted to drugs, and this was her fourth child and his first. So imagine where, and at this time, I don't know if you remember, it used to be a bus company that was right there on Portland Avenue, across from the pop shop. It was called Bridgerton British Charter and Transit. It was like a
Right.
Greyhound bus company. My grandparents owned that on my father's side, double Rolls Royces and everything, where my mom is literally, when I come home from school, prostituting on the corner, you know what I mean, trying to solicit my friends and peers for drugs. And it's like, nah, Amy, we can't sell it to you. You know what I mean? Because of our relationship and not wanting us to see that. So that's what I was faced with. I realized at a very, very, very early age, and I mean first, second, third grade, my grandmother, the way that she raised me is, you're going to be the vessel of light, the glimmer of hope that changes the trajectory, of the way our family is going to be viewed, especially from a male perspective. It's because we, at that point in time, we didn't have too many successful male individuals in my family. Either they were addicted to drugs or they was drug dealers. That's, you know, the gist of what I came from. We had one cousin, you know, who went to the army, but again, this is that early 90s era. You know what I mean, coach? So the way that my grandmother brought me up is that anything that you want to do, put your mind to it early, be very, very observant of your surroundings so you know the person that you're not going to become. That was the way that I viewed life. That was the way I looked at things early. So even when I'm going to school with walking to school with all my friends, no matter what, I got straight A's through school. I mean, from first grade on. Second, third grade, they had to take me out of my elementary school, place me in another school. I begged my grandmother, a private school for, you know, highly more educated children at that time, to where I'll cry to my grandmother just to go back to my other school. So I flip flop schools all the way to sixth grade. Um, Even going to school of the arts, ace through, even during the 4 years there, you know, I was the school president. I graduated with a 3.8 from this school, which was a, you know, very, very hard school to get into. But again, I'm walking home from school. I walk home from school. I get straight A's. I score 20 points in the basketball game. As soon as I hit that corner right there on Sion East Main, my mom on the corner, you know, doing whatever for some money, you know. So that's the way that I was brought up. So I always was brought up to where I have to be the one that change, not only for my family, but I also had to be the motivation for my neighborhood too. I knew exactly what my friends were going to be. The cool thing about like me and the way I was brought up from my grandmother barely came outside, you know, unless it was to water her grass,
Right.
and she was the grandmother for the whole entire neighborhood, you know. So so many people have respect for Miss Stanley, and I did kind of briefly go into having OG male figures. That's like, nah, if they see me going in that wrong direction, you that one. You stay on your straight and narrow. A couple other things that I did, like I said, anything I wanted to do, my grandmother made sure that as long as I got good grades, I did it. If I wanted the newest video games, the newest sneakers, I was back then. Jordans wasn't so early. My grandma was paying for whatever to get me those shoes just to make sure I'm not going to sell no drugs to get those sneakers early or do whatever I got to do in order to get those kicks. So I was involved in also a young men's group, like after school program as well, that kind of starts helping me shape myself and give me direction. It was Brother George and Brother Ryan. They worked at Lewis Street Community Center at the time. That's where we played ball after. And they gave us the opportunity just to do a few different things. We sold incense and oils when we were kids in order to raise money to throw our own party. So that's kind of where my entrepreneur background comes from there. This is
See,
when we're 12 years old. You know what I mean?
right. I started working at 12 too, so I get it. You know, and I had to grind because you know I had some commonalities in my background with some drug addiction and some other things I went through. And I say all that to say the big theme that comes out of this for me is that you had a mindset that you wanted to make it and be successful no matter what, even
Mm-hmm.
though you saw your mother doing what she was doing. You went through tremendous amount of hurt and pain because of that, because the emotions that go along with that. But you made a decision, and you could have went down that road, and that's what I really want people to hear and listen to, because there's a lot of people who decide to give away to the things, and the pressure
Mm-hmm.
come, and
Mm-hmm.
they decide to be just like it, and they decide to just say, forget it. You know, I don't care, because it's just easier to do that. And you decided not to. But what type of feelings did you go through? Like, what type of hurt and trauma did it cause experiencing those things? How did it make you feel?
Honestly, depression is real. Depression is real. I don't think our people necessarily we're taught as African American males to always be strong. Nah, be tough, man. You can't be vulnerable. You know what I mean? You what you talking about? And with me, I didn't have too many outlets, but I always was the individual to say, I'm not going to let this negativity hold me down no matter what. I have to keep going. I always believed in positive energy, having a positive mindset, and it starts with your mental. You can never break my mental down, no matter what. Even other situations that we're going to get a chance to talk about, it was always having a positive mindset and turning a negative into a positive immediately and not letting that negativity weigh me down. Because if you do that, again, me being so observant, and I come from a neighborhood to where I've seen so many people who have had so much potential literally let that same depression or those same situations and those same problematic situations that I was going through or dealing with affect them in a negative way, and it stumbled them off of the trajectory of reaching the maximum potential of an individual who they could have become. If you know anything about Rochester, I'm from Scio Street. Scio is basically, we call it a city within a city. It's from Davis to Lyndhurst, north to Union, from the park to the church. I had people who I looked up to when I was in first, second, and third grade. Maybe they were, headed a CYO team, or they went to maybe a private school, or they had so much potential and looked so pretty, and I seen drugs get the best of them. I seen them use them. The same thing, my mom is on drugs, that's why I went down this path of selling drugs, or not, or just not caring. And literally those same individuals to this day are still chasing the 16, 15, 14, 13-year-old version of themselves. And I said, I don't want this to be me.
See,
It
but I think
can't
that's
be me.
important, and I think people need to hear that because until you are willing to break the cycles and
Yes.
you become a 30, 40, 50-year-old man and you start and you continue to chase this younger version. And see, even myself, what I've had to realize is because a lot of that hurt, it creates certain vices because it
Mm-hmm.
creates certain outlets for it. And it creates, and so my outlet and my vice was always women.
Mm-hmm.
So it creates these outlets that you need to deal with the emotions.
Yep.
And so some people turn to drugs, they turn to
Mm-hmm.
alcohol, they turn to other things, violence, they turn to things that help them relieve the pressure, relieve the,
Mm-hmm.
and a lot of it was they were chasing about it. And
Yep.
recently I have a new book that's coming out, which is after the podcast. It's called From the Gutter to Greatness, and I have a 21-day challenge attached to it. So one of the challenges it talks about what is it like to be loved versus in love, and so
Mm-hmm.
you're trying to figure out what that means. And so I'm taking these challenges myself, so that
Beautiful.
I'm not a hypocrite, so that so people understand that even as I've written about it, as I've done some of these things already, I can also describe it because these are issues and hangups I've had. So I think about
Mm-hmm.
him and chasing it is relevant because as I have think about love versus in love, I have for a long time because of the way that I used to feel. So because the way I grew up, and I often felt like I didn't have anybody who loved me, who cared about me, or
Mm-hmm.
me, or like I mattered because I got left alone due to depression, where I was taking
Mm-hmm.
myself from the age of 4 or 5 years old and raising myself and stuff
Mm-hmm.
addicted to crack. We doing and dealing with all these things. So I didn't feel loved. And then I started to feel loved once I started gaining certain sexual experiences. And then
Mm-hmm.
started to feel like and associating in love with those feelings of being wanted. And so,
Mm-hmm.
but misplacing them because that's not really in love. And I might love
Mm-hmm.
somebody, but the minute that they don't make me feel like wanted and those in love things that are associated with sex, it made me want to go look for it other places
Yep.
for that feeling over again and repeat it. And so
Mm-hmm.
finally now over the last 3 or 4 years, I'm old enough and willing to work on it where I'm trying to figure out and not chase that 13, 14-year-old high the same way I used to and
Mm-hmm.
still working through it. And it's in my head, it's a challenge to where now I understand it, identify it, and I'm not doing the same things that I would have done previously. But at the same time, that doesn't mean that it's not a fight every day. And so I
Absolutely.
people are often going from, especially us black males, are going through these things. and then we don't have outlets to think about it, to talk about it, to figure out what it is. And that's why I've done this challenge for folks to identify, to look at it. And
Hmm.
so I'll say this to you, if interested, I will share if you want to take the challenge. and
Absolutely,
and
absolutely.
and it's all about working on yourself, and it's a journey on self-improvement and moving towards being unstoppable, especially unstoppable black man. So we'll hook up and link on that. And
Absolutely. And
so
I'm on that journey. I'm all for it. I am all for it, coach, man.
that
So
and so those feelings, so when you felt like that and you went through those feelings, what did you need to do to start to heal? What did your healing process look like so that you didn't fall apart, and so that you could be a decent man and person and successful? What did the healing process look like?
honestly, I'm still healing. I'm still healing. I don't think like certain wounds you can't cover with a band-aid. If that makes sense, those scars have to heal 100% themselves. And I think what takes us back to those times is that you're never gonna forget. You even with certain situations you may forgive, but you're never gonna forget. So I think what I looked to honestly the most was I had to one establish a better relationship with God and realize that there is a higher power. There is more purpose in life than the maybe the hand that I was dealt. So I definitely turned to God and establish a more firmer relationship, a personal relationship with Him, so I could have more power and more faith and knowing that the direction that the Lord is pushing me in, where there's a will, there's a way. Because I didn't have certain individuals that I can go to, and again, at this time where you're young, you can't. And again, you don't really know what's happening to you as far as like maybe this depression state, but you can't say, "Oh, I want to go to counseling at this time," especially when you're in a family where it's foster care. You might get taken away from your grandmother.
Right, right.
Next thing you know, they're gonna do background checks and stuff like that on her. So honestly, just like I said, that situation with my mom, and I always believe on as long as you never stop putting in the work. I got tattooed on my chest. Never stop dreaming. Understand that everything is a process. Like you used the term fight. Well, in an organized fight, which we have like boxing, you go into this match, you come down, and you already have the mindset that what you're gonna take a few hits, you're gonna take a few lumps, few punches. You even might get one of your eyes might get closed. You might be bleeding. You might could barely swing your feet. But at the end of the day, one person is gonna come out a victorious champion out of this. And I always felt like no matter what, that's it. That's exactly what my role and my path was. I'm gonna endure these bumps. I'm gonna endure these bruises. I'm gonna fall 9 times. I know that. But on the flip side of that, I know I'm gonna pick myself up 10 times. The same kid that also told you he never lived with his mom, literally my entire goal in life was to be the person that got my mom off of drugs.
Right.
That literally still, mom, I'm still gonna buy you this house with this picket fence. I'm gonna be the reason. My mom literally again, until she passed away, a few years ago, which she passed away in rehab, again, still trying to help her. So she probably been to jail maybe 15, 20 times, rehab maybe 50, 100 times, in between that range. It was still always me. I remember when my mom, she'd come home, and my mom got to it as well. My mom would come home, get my grandmother $10,000, take care of the kids, and next thing, make sure, my kids are straight. And then maybe 3, 4 days later, mom, let me get $1,000 of that money. Let me get 2,000. Next thing you know, she beating on the door 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning while we got to go to school. And now she don't got no money, nowhere to stay, back out on the streets. I'm still a 10-year-old kid sneaking her to live inside of the garage, and we having these conversations. And it's like, mom, don't worry. When I get older, I'm gonna get a great job, or I'm gonna be successful. I'm gonna be able to take care of you. That was my thing all the way until I until my mom died. You know what I mean? So, and this is through the stardom. This is just like you saying, coach. I always got all the girls, got straight A's, played basketball, played football, was one of the only kids to go to college, always had all the best clothes I want. But this is what I'm really dealing with. There's no other situation that I'm going to go into. So no matter everything else that came, this was the ultimate hurt and the ultimate pain. You know what I mean? And I was feeling that so young that I became numb to everything else. So at the end of the day, the healing process actually started for me when my mom passed away. It's because when my mom passed away, I said, you know what?
You can focus on you instead
Until
of
exactly
her.
until this lady passed away, it was everything was really for her. And I went down with a fight. I did everything that I did until she passed. Now, how can I rehabilitate myself, my mindset to now focus on me? And I went through a period as well. You got to think from 19 and then you hit 21. I had this 2-year run in Rochester, but 2 years of, your songs on the radio, you're not getting on, you're not making any money. Now reality sets in. I gave up college for this. Now I'm a 21-year-old, trying to figure out what I'm gonna do with life. That's when whole nother depression come in. Now I got to work regular jobs. I can't be seen. I was just a kid where people was running up to me, giving me hugs. I could, like you said, I'm having sex with 4 or 5 different girls a day. You know what I mean? To now it's like, well, what you really got going on? You know what I mean?
Right.
So I'm trying to figure life out as a 21-year-old kid. I'm depressed. I went from having my own crib. I had to move back in with my sister for a little bit. And it's just like, this the first time it's really hitting me pertaining to me. Is because I had not more or less an excuse, but my mind was always over here. And now when I got to put it into self, it's like, how can I figure this out? And that's what even kind of led me to relocating and getting a fresh start here in Chicago. And I think that's a thing for people. You hold on to those memories. What you don't realize is time doesn't wait for anybody. You have to hit the restart button. You have to do self-evaluation. You have to literally say, hey, self, remember you said you wanted to be the best version of yourself? You haven't been doing those things to even reach your full potential. So guess what? It's time for you to go back to the drawing board, reevaluate life, get in a better mindset mentally, and put yourself in a position for you to think different, so you can reach the full potential of being the best version of yourself. I'm always a firm believer. I've always been self-motivated, for
Right.
one. But 2, I also had to learn how to get myself out of this rut, is because, to be honest with you, I didn't feel like I had many outlets outside of God, is because I was dealing with so much more. And then I had certain individuals along the way. I didn't really understand of how to approach a mentor, especially in the lane that I was in, being the first one to get this national exposure. So I was also timid to say, you know what, I'm not in a position that I would like to be in. And then it became one of my friends out here. And I don't know if you want to get into another piece, but that move to Chicago, it kind of shifted everything.
It was Phil, right?
Yeah, it was my guy, P. Scott. Well, Philip Sinclair.
Yeah.
And I'm so grateful for him giving me the opportunity. And basically that same day, just to make a long story short on that perspective, like I said, me and my friends, we like, fuck it. We need some job, bro. Either we gonna be out here on some, petty hustling. Let's get some stable money real quick. So we actually at the temp agency going to fill out apps. Now, mind you, P. Scott, he used to own a few barbershops in Rochester. He cut